My name is Michael Johnson, and on March 3rd, 2017, my life changed forever. Up until that day, I was just an ordinary guy. I worked as an assistant manager at a local hardware store, lived in a small apartment, and spent my time hanging out with friends or watching TV. I wasn't deeply religious. I believed in God, sure, but I never really thought much about it. I figured as long as I was a decent person, I'd be fine. Good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell, simple as that. I assumed I had all the time in the world to figure out the deeper questions in life. But I was wrong. That morning started like any other. I woke up, got dressed, grabbed some coffee, and headed to work. It was a busy Friday, and I spent most of my day stocking shelves and helping customers. Nothing felt unusual, no bad feelings, no warning signs. After my shift, I got in my car and started the drive home. I remember thinking about what I was going to eat for dinner, maybe just some leftovers, and how I still needed to pick up a few things from the store over the weekend. It was such a normal day, until everything changed. Out of nowhere, a sharp pain shot through my chest. It wasn't like a pulled muscle or a cramp. It was deep, like something inside me had suddenly snapped. My arms felt weak, my head spun, and my vision blurred. I remember gripping the steering wheel, trying to keep control, but it was no use. Everything around me faded, and then nothing, just blackness. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my car anymore, or at least not in the way I should have been. I was above it, looking down at the wreckage. My car was smashed. Twisted metal, shattered glass, the front end completely crumpled. People were running over, some shouting, some pulling out their phones. I saw a man standing near his own car, his face pale as he frantically called for help. Then I saw myself, slumped over in the driver's seat, blood on my forehead, my chest barely moving. Paramedics arrived and immediately started working on me, one of them pumping my chest while another scrambled to set up medical equipment. I should have been panicking, but I wasn't. I felt strangely calm, like I was just watching it all unfold, like it was happening to someone else. As I stood there, watching the paramedics work on my body, I started to feel something strange, like an invisible rope was tugging at me, pulling me away from the scene. At first, I tried to resist, but there was no fighting it. The world around me, the flashing lights, the shouting voices, the chaos, all began to fade like a distant memory. The harder I tried to hold on, the weaker I felt, like I was slipping away into something I couldn't control. Before I knew it, everything went black. Not like closing your eyes or drifting off to sleep. This was different. It was an endless, crushing darkness that seemed to swallow me whole. There was no sound, no movement, no sense of direction. Just cold, empty blackness. At first, I thought maybe this was what death felt like. Just quiet nothingness. Maybe this was where my mind had gone while they tried to bring me back. But the longer I stayed there, the more I realized something wasn't right. The darkness wasn't empty. It was alive. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel something watching me. I couldn't explain how, but I knew I wasn't alone. There were figures, shapes shifting in the shadows. They weren't clear, just faint outlines that seemed to flicker in and out of sight. But I could feel their presence. Cold, heavy, and suffocating. The air around me seemed to thicken, weighing down on my chest. I wanted to move, to get away from whatever was out there, but I couldn't. It was like I was trapped in place, frozen while something I couldn't see crept closer. Then I heard them, the whispers. At first, they were faint, quiet murmurs that I couldn't quite make out, but they grew louder, circling me from every direction. The voices were sharp, hateful, and twisted, like they knew exactly how to tear me down. "No one's waiting for you. You don't belong there. You're ours now." The words dug into me like hooks, each one colder than the last. The whispers weren't just noise. They carried a feeling with them, a deep, hopeless emptiness that made me feel smaller and weaker with every second. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, but I couldn't move. It was like the darkness itself had wrapped around me, pressing down on me from all sides. My mind raced, searching for a way out, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find one. I had never been particularly religious, but right then, I remember thinking, "God, if you're there, please help me." Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I saw something, a faint glow in the distance. It was small, barely visible against the crushing darkness, but it was there. At first, I wasn't even sure if I was imagining it, but as I focused, the light seemed to grow stronger. The whispers around me reacted immediately. They grew louder, more aggressive, almost panicked. "No!" one of the voices snarled. "Don't go. You're nothing. You're ours." The light kept moving closer, steady and calm, like it wasn't afraid of whatever was lurking in the dark. The closer it got, the more the whispers turned to screams, shrill, desperate cries that echoed all around me. I didn't know what that light was, but I knew one thing: the darkness hated it. And if the darkness didn't want me near it, then I knew that's exactly where I needed to be. I tried to move toward the light, but it felt like something was holding me back, something cold and heavy clinging to me. The harder I pushed forward, the stronger that grip seemed to get. It felt like invisible hands were wrapping around my arms and legs, trying to drag me deeper into the void. The voices screamed louder, their words sharper, more hateful. "You don't deserve to leave. No one wants you there. You're too far gone." I started to believe them. Every mistake I'd made, every regret I'd buried deep inside came rushing back. It felt like they knew everything about me. Every selfish decision, every cruel word, every moment of doubt. For a second, I felt like giving up, like maybe they were right. But then the light grew stronger, and that's when I saw him. The figure inside the glow wasn't just light. It was a person, a man stepping forward with a presence so powerful it seemed to shake the entire void. I couldn't see every detail, but I knew who he was. It was Jesus. I didn't need to be told. Something inside me just knew. The moment he stepped forward, the darkness flinched. The whispers turned into shrieks, angry, furious cries that seemed to tear through the air. The figures in the shadows scattered like smoke in the wind. Whatever had been holding me down let go, and I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my chest. The darkness didn't just retreat. It was shattered, blown away like dust. I dropped to my knees, overwhelmed by the warmth that surrounded me. It wasn't just light, it was peace. A peace so strong it felt like I was breathing for the first time in my life. Every fear, every doubt, every ounce of pain I'd been holding on to, it was all gone. I felt safe, not just safe, but known. Like I had been seen my entire life, even when I thought no one was watching. As I knelt there, overwhelmed by the warmth and peace surrounding me, Jesus stepped closer. His presence was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Powerful yet gentle, commanding yet full of love. The light wasn't just around him. It was coming from him. It flowed out in every direction, filling the space with a warmth that seemed to reach every corner of my soul. I couldn't stop the tears from falling, not out of fear, but because I felt something I never had before, complete and total acceptance. Then he spoke my name. Michael. His voice wasn't loud, yet it seemed to echo inside me, deeper than sound, like it was being carved into my very being. The way he said my name, it wasn't like someone recognizing me. It was like he had always known me. I couldn't explain it, but I knew this wasn't just some distant God I'd ignored for most of my life. This was someone who had been there the whole time, waiting for me. I wanted to speak, to say something, but I couldn't find the words. My mind raced with memories. Moments I had brushed aside, conversations about God I'd walked away from, those late nights when I'd laid awake, wondering if there was something more. I had convinced myself I didn't care, but deep down, I had been searching for answers my whole life. Jesus knew that. Without me saying a word, he knew every thought, every doubt, every mistake. Yet he was still standing there, looking at me with nothing but love. Then he said something that shook me to my core. You have been seeking answers. I hadn't thought of myself as someone searching for God. But in that moment, it all made sense. All the times I felt lost, all the moments I wondered about life's purpose, those quiet thoughts I never spoke out loud. Jesus knew them. He had seen it all, even when I didn't realize it myself. Now you will see the truth, he said, and as those words left his mouth, everything around me seemed to shift. The light grew even brighter, and I knew I was about to see something that would change everything I thought I knew. The light surrounding me seemed to expand, wrapping around everything like a blanket. I couldn't tell if I was standing or floating. All I knew was that I felt weightless, yet grounded at the same time. Then the world around me started to change. The light seemed to part, revealing what looked like a vast open space. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't like Earth, but it felt real. The air felt alive, like it was moving through me, and everything carried this overwhelming sense of peace. But then, I noticed something strange. Off in the distance, I saw people, groups of them scattered across the landscape. Some were standing together, talking and smiling, while others seemed distant. The second group looked confused, almost lost. They weren't suffering, they weren't screaming or in pain, but there was something off about them. They stood alone, as if they didn't know where to go. Some looked frustrated, some looked angry, and others just seemed sad, like they were waiting for something that wasn't coming. I turned to Jesus, unsure of what I was seeing. Before I could ask, he spoke. These are the souls who never knew me, he said. Some rejected me outright. Others believed they could walk their own path and find peace without me. And some believed they had all the answers. That's when I noticed something else, something that shook me. The people standing alone. Many of them looked just like me. People who seemed like they had lived normal lives. They weren't murderers or criminals. They looked like everyday people. Parents, neighbors, co-workers, people who probably thought they were good enough just like I had. I felt a knot in my stomach as Jesus turned toward me. You thought you had time, he said softly. You believed that being a good person was enough. But without me, no one can truly know the Father. There was no anger in his voice, only sadness, as if he had been watching people make that mistake for far too long. Then he showed me something else. In the distance, I saw another group, standing together, but this time bathed in the same warm light that surrounded Jesus. Their faces were joyful, and their presence radiated peace. I couldn't explain it, but I knew these people had been changed by Jesus. They weren't perfect, I could tell they'd struggled in life, but they had trusted him. They had chosen to follow him, and now they were home. Then Jesus said something that I'll never forget. It was never about being good enough. It's about knowing me. As I stood there, taking in what Jesus had just shown me, I felt a heaviness in my chest. Not from fear, but from regret. I realized how easily I could have ended up like those people standing alone, confused and empty. I had spent my whole life assuming that as long as I wasn't a terrible person, I'd be fine. I thought I had time to figure things out, time to ask the big questions later. But I didn't. That moment at the wheel when the pain hit my chest, that was it. My time had run out, and I hadn't even seen it coming. Then, Jesus showed me something that shook me even deeper. The scene shifted, and suddenly I was standing in what looked like a city. Not one I recognized, but somewhere filled with people from all walks of life. I saw families, groups of friends, children playing. But as I looked closer, something caught my attention. The people were divided. It wasn't obvious at first, but the more I watched, the clearer it became. Groups of people kept to themselves, refusing to cross into certain areas or interact with anyone outside their circle. There was tension, not outright hostility, but an unspoken wall separating people by race, background, or social class. I turned to Jesus, confused. Why are they like this? I asked. Is this hell? No, he said. This is the world as it has chosen to be. He paused for a moment before continuing. You've seen it your whole life, the pride, the division, the belief that some are greater or more deserving than others. Even those who claim to know me still allow their hearts to be filled with these things. That's when I understood. It wasn't just about faith. It was about how people allowed pride, bitterness, and judgment to build walls between themselves and others. Jesus explained that those walls don't just divide people on earth. They can follow people into eternity. Some of those lost souls I had seen earlier, the ones wandering alone, had spent their lives clinging to those divisions, refusing to let go of their anger, their prejudice, or their pride. There is no race in my kingdom, Jesus said. No one is greater than another. But many refuse to accept that truth, and it keeps them far from me. His words hit me hard. I had never thought of myself as a hateful person, but I couldn't deny that I had held my own quiet judgments, assumptions I made about people without even realizing it. I had let pride blind me to the truth. We're all broken people equally in need of His grace. As I stood there, the weight of what Jesus had shown me pressed down on my heart. I thought back to moments in my life, moments I had ignored or forgotten, where I had judged people without even realizing it. Times I had looked at someone and assumed I was better, or moments I had distanced myself from people just because they didn't look like me, talk like me, or live like me. I had never thought of myself as hateful, but I could see now how those quiet thoughts, those subtle judgments, had built walls inside my heart, walls that kept me from seeing people the way Jesus did. Then Jesus showed me something else, something that broke me even more. The scene shifted again, and this time I was standing in what felt like a place outside of time. Before me, I saw people, endless faces stretching as far as I could see, and mixed in with those faces were people I recognized. Co-workers, neighbors, even old friends from my past. Some of them were smiling, bathed in that same warm light I had seen before. But others, they looked lost, empty. Their faces were filled with confusion and sadness, like they were still searching for something they couldn't find. I felt sick when I realized what I was looking at. Some of the people standing alone were people I had known. People I had brushed off, ignored, or treated like they didn't matter. people I had the chance to love, to forgive, to show kindness to. But I didn't. I never thought it was my job to help them. I figured they'd figure it out on their own. I kept waiting for someone else to step in, someone else to guide them to God, never realizing that God had put me in their life for that very reason. I turned to Jesus, ashamed and broken. I didn't know, I whispered. I didn't know they were searching. Jesus looked at me with eyes full of love, but also sorrow. You knew, he said softly. You just didn't want to see it. Those words cut deep. I had spent my whole life believing that faith was something personal, something people had to figure out for themselves. I never realized that God was calling me to be a light, to reach out to the people around me. Not to preach, not to act superior, but to love them, to show kindness, to break down the walls that kept people divided. I realized then that some of those people I had ignored had been searching for God, but they couldn't see him through the judgment, the pride, and the walls that people like me had built. I stood there in silence, overwhelmed by the weight of what I had seen. Faces kept flashing through my mind. People I had crossed paths with who were now lost, not because they were bad people, but because they had spent their lives feeling unseen, unwanted, or judged. I kept thinking about how many chances I had missed, opportunities to offer a kind word, to listen, to show them love instead of indifference. And the worst part was knowing that I had convinced myself none of it mattered, that as long as I wasn't hurting anyone, I was doing enough. Jesus must have known what I was thinking because he placed his hand on my shoulder, and for a moment, I felt that same warmth, the overwhelming love that seemed to wash away my shame. This is not to condemn you, he said. This is to wake you up. His voice was calm, yet firm, like a father guiding his child back to safety. You still have a choice, he continued. But the walls people build in their hearts will keep them from seeing me unless someone is willing to break those walls down. I asked Jesus what he meant, and he showed me one more vision, one that felt even more personal. I saw a man, someone I had worked with years ago named Eric. We were never close, but I remembered him. He was quiet, kept to himself, and often sat alone during breaks. I had always assumed he just preferred to be left alone, so I never bothered to reach out. I never knew that Eric had been battling depression. I never knew that he'd been searching for meaning, for hope, for God. I never knew that all he needed was someone to remind him that he mattered. And yet I had ignored him, not out of cruelty, but out of comfort. I didn't want to get involved. I told myself I was too busy, that someone else would help him, but no one ever did. I felt my chest tighten as I realized the truth. I was supposed to be that person. God had placed Eric in my life for a reason, and I had looked the other way. Tears filled my eyes as I turned to Jesus. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry. But Jesus didn't scold me. He didn't turn away. Instead, he knelt down beside me and looked straight into my eyes. There's still time, he said. But you must remember, it's not just about what you believe. It's about what you do with that belief. Love without limits. Show grace where others won't. Break down the walls that divide my people, because in my kingdom, there is no pride, no race, no division. Only love. His words hit me like a wave, and for the first time, I understood what Jesus had been trying to show me all along. It wasn't just about living a good life. It was about living a life that reflects his love. A love that doesn't judge, doesn't separate, and doesn't turn away. A love that reaches everyone, no matter who they are. The next thing I knew, the light around me began to dim, and that peaceful warmth started to fade. I felt like I was being pulled backward, away from Jesus, away from everything he had just shown me. Panic set in. I didn't want to leave. I wasn't ready. There was still so much I didn't understand, so much I wanted to ask. Please, I begged. Don't send me back, not yet. But Jesus just smiled. Not in a way that dismissed my fear, but with a calm assurance that everything was exactly as it should be. It's not your time, he said. You have more to do. His words settled in my chest like a promise, a weight that felt both comforting and heavy. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air, coughing as pain shot through my chest. Voices surrounded me, loud, urgent voices, paramedics shouting instructions. I felt hands pressing against my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was alive or still stuck in that dark place. My head was spinning, and everything felt distant, like I was hearing the world from underwater. But as I lay there, struggling to breathe, one thing was clear. I had been given a second chance. Recovery wasn't easy. Physically, I healed with time, but mentally and spiritually, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen, what Jesus had shown me. I knew I couldn't go back to living the way I had before. I couldn't just ignore people, keep to myself, or assume that someone else would step in where I wouldn't. Every face I had seen, the lost souls, the ones wandering alone, they stayed with me, and I knew God was calling me to do something about it. I started by reaching out to people I had overlooked before, old coworkers, distant relatives, even strangers who seemed like they were struggling. I didn't come at them with judgment or lectures, I just listened. I showed kindness where I hadn't before. I chose love where I would have once chosen comfort. And the more I did, the clearer it became. This was what Jesus had been teaching me all along. Faith wasn't just about believing in him. It was about reflecting his love through our actions, especially to those who are hurting or feel unseen. I don't know why Jesus allowed me to come back, but I believe it's because there's someone, maybe someone like you, who needs to hear this. If you're holding on to anger, pride, or judgment, let it go. If there's someone in your life you've been ignoring because it's easier to stay in your own comfort zone, reach out. You never know what someone is battling, and you may be the only person God has placed in their life to show them his love. Jesus didn't save me because I was good enough. He saved me because he loved me, and he loves you just the same. If you're feeling lost, if you've spent your life thinking you're not worthy or that it's too late, I promise you it's not. Jesus is still reaching out, still calling your name, and he's waiting for you to answer. I don't tell this story to scare people or to make myself seem special. I tell it because I know how easy it is to drift through life thinking you've got time. I thought I had time too, until I didn't. Don't make the same mistake I did. If this message spoke to you, I ask you to take a moment right now to reflect on the people in your life. Ask yourself, who have I overlooked? Who have I ignored? Who needs to know they are loved? And then take action, whether it's a call, a conversation, or even a simple act of kindness. Do something. You might just be the reason someone finds their way back to God. If you found this story meaningful, please share it. Someone you know may need to hear it more than you realize. And if you're searching for answers, I encourage you to seek Jesus, because I promise you, he's already seeking you.